Hello, everybody. Hello, Isaac.
Hello, hello.
Hi. So, for those of you just joining, my name is Dylan. My pronouns are he, she, and I am the learning experience designer at Equality Leaders. And I wanted to take a moment to thank you all for being here with us at our annual Men's Summit. It really is my absolute honor and pleasure to be in conversation with the incredible Isaac Harvey, MBE, who is a disability and mental health advocate. He was born and raised in East London, and Isaac will be sharing with us his personal journey of being Black and British and a man living with a disability called limb-pelvis hypoaplasia, which means he has no arms and short legs. But despite his disability, it's not stopped Isaac from achieving things such as skiing, skydiving, tall ship sailing, and so much more. And as a fierce advocate, Isaac continues to disrupt narratives around disability and mental health. So, again, Isaac, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yes, and thank you for having me for this. Should be a real good conversation.
Absolutely. And as always, never long enough. So,
Yeah,
on
exactly.
that on that note, I'd like to kind of start by holding space for you to introduce yourself and perhaps share with us those chapters of your journey that have been particularly pivotal or meaningful to you. I pass the mic on to you.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, that was only probably 25% of the chapters because there's so many in my life. But yeah, so yeah, born and raised in East London with a disability, which is quite a complex disability. But thanks to the friends and family around me, they've always been supportive and never really discouraged me from doing things. As you mentioned, skiing, skydiving, and tall ship sailing, amongst many other things that I've been able to overcome. I've also been a high achiever, which has allowed me to carry the Olympic torch. It's allowed me to win an award which got me onto television, the Vlogstar Challenge, and only last week got myself an MBE from King Charles himself. But it's been a very rocky road, and actually one I never knew would be possible because, funny enough, I never wanted to be a disability advocate or be open about it because when I left school, I've always had a creative mind and I wanted to be a content creator, creating videos, and just expressing my creativity. And friends and family would always say to me, "Oh, you should really talk about disability. You could really change people's perspectives." And I thought, why'd I have to do that for? That doesn't make any sense. Why I have to do that? So I kept on ignoring friends and family. They kept on at me until I was given an opportunity to do a talk about my life, which I did. And when I finished the talk and the different obstacles that I face, such as traveling's not as straightforward, needing someone to be with me and having to do a lot of planning. Um, I spoke, it can still be a very fulfilling life, even with these obstacles. And someone came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh, after hearing your story, you've really changed my perspective. And I get loads of pains in my legs, and I'm always complaining, but now I feel like a lot more positive now." And just hearing that one story, who wasn't a friend or family member, I saw the impact I was making. So then I started implementing my lived experience into this day to day, and yeah, talking about disability and becoming an advocate. And then when it comes to mental health, that was another journey in itself, which coincided with all of this. I thought, to be happy in life, I needed to be in a relationship, I needed to have a successful job, and many other external factors. And because I wasn't getting these things, it blinded me by the successes that I was doing. And it just got to a breaking point where I had to take a step back and really understand why I was thinking these thoughts and why I wasn't happy, even though I was doing all of these amazing things that you've mentioned, and why I wasn't happy still. So I took a step back and started learning about the mind. And that's where I learned about the law of attraction and how we think through and speak as the reality we create, and the importance of meditation and many other factors that I now put into my day to day life. And one thing I did really learn from it is the importance of being honest with myself as well as my audience. So that's how I also implemented that into my day to day. And now with those two forces together, it's got me to where I am today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I guess, some of those stories that you shared with us now really are testament to the power of storytelling, right? It helps us understand one another. And that importance of growing that self-awareness and that self-reflexivity, that's been a common theme throughout our day here in our conversations that we've had. So thank you for sharing. And I guess I'd like to maybe explore a little more, Isaac, about your mental health journey, and what, or rather how is your experience of navigating your everyday as a Black disabled man impacted where you find yourself now? How has it impacted your career journey?
Well, it's funny because, like I said, with my mental health, I was blinded by what I was successful at, and m- when I became a bit more clear about mental health and how I was feeling internally, it made me realize that my disability has been my biggest strength. It's something because of the friends and family who've always encouraged me. Having my disability is what made me get up in the morning, even though I was like, oh, I can't be bothered with today. I don't want to do what I'm doing today. I don't want to meet that person. I don't want to speak openly about this. But because of how I've overcome things with my disability, that's what was like, okay, I'm just going to go out and do what I have to. And most of the time, I would enjoy it and what I was doing. But yeah, and it's one thing, and it may sound a bit funny, but disability has given me all of these great opportunities. I mean, if it wasn't for my disability, I don't think I would have pushed myself to do all of these different things and be able to share these experiences with people. So what some people may see as my biggest weakness has been my biggest strength. But when it comes to being Black, this is something that I've taken time to really speak about openly. Um, it's not that I've felt very. It's not that I've not felt comfortable in talking about my race, but I felt that my biggest discrimination and my biggest passion has been disability. So that's been my main focus, and maybe race has played a part in that. But I've always had the disability lens. But I've been this year during Black History Month and just before that, I've been speaking more openly about it and learning from other people within the community and hearing their stories, and how I can um, make more impact with my story, and technically what I'm sharing now is part of my race as well. So I've technically been doing it all my life, but I just don't feel personally I've been very outspoken about it,
Mhm.
which is why I'm yeah taking a step to keep on this journey of learning about myself as well as others, and therefore becoming a better ally and yeah, in different aspects. So it's a journey,
Mhm.
not an end destination.
Absolutely. And, so much of what you've spoken about, right now takes such courage, compassion, cognizance, all the rest of it. These are not easy journeys to go on. And you speak of impact, right? And the impact that you're making there. So my question to you is, would you consider yourself to be a role model in some ways to the people in your life, to the communities you're a part of? And what does it mean to be a role model, in your opinion?
I'm going to answer the second part first. So I think to be a role model is responsibility. Um, I have over 30,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I feel anything I say, and because of how truthful I am in my stories, I've got to be, well, for me personally, I'm very careful how I word things, but also keep authentic with it, because I don't want to lead people down the wrong paths, which some role models tend to do, and not really help their audience in growth and learning and understanding. Um, and it can, and sometimes you get the false representation of life. I try and give people a more realistic approach to life. So yeah, I got the MBE last week, but then a couple of days later, I had the most awful experience traveling, which ended up getting me onto the BBC and talking about the importance of accessibility. So it can so I give a more realistic approach, saying, look, life can be very fulfilling, but it also comes with its challenges, and people do appreciate that. But when it comes to seeing myself as a role model, it's something I'm still trying to understand, that people see what I do and really take something from it. I remember doing a post in May talking about quitting things that some people may not thought I've done, and I was scared of being honest about it, but I was like, no, I need to say it. It's, I want to share the truth of why I had to step away, because things weren't aligning. And the amount of
Mm,
people who messaged me privately and said, "Oh, thank you for doing that. I'm also in a similar circumstance, but after hearing you take that step, I feel like I can do it as well." And whenever I see that, I say, "Oh wow, I do reach people, and I am changing people's perspectives, and I do have that bigger impact that sometimes I forget I have." Um, so I don't know. I guess yeah, I do see myself as a role model.
Perhaps it's a case of, when it comes to this conversation around giving oneself the label of role model, perhaps it's similar in many ways to, that label of allyship, right? They always say that you can't call yourself an ally. It's a label that's earned, right? That's bestowed upon your responsibility, right? And perhaps in similar ways, the same case. It applies to being a role model. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the fact that, role modeling in many ways requires or demands of us to put our head above that parapet, right? Um, and that can be really scary.
Mm, yes, absolutely, because you don't know how it's going to be received,
Mm,
but also trying to keep it authentic as well, because obviously
mm,
I don't want to be depressing and say, oh, I'm in pain every day, and oh, life's a struggle, because yeah, it can be, but I like to balance it for myself as well, because if I was only speaking negatively, and I know this from past experiences did impact my mental health and my life, to think quite
mm,
negatively about things. So I do try and keep it balanced, for myself and the audience.
mm. So let's move on to this question of belonging, right? I mean, this is very much a part of the diversity, equity, inclusion lexicon. It's something that we speak about all the time, right? Is belonging, and it's a basic human need that we all have. That need for connection. So, what does it mean to you to belong? And can you remember the first time when you felt as though you belonged?
Sorry, say the first part of the question again. Sorry.
It's what does it mean to you to belong? What does that feel like for you?
So for me to feel belonged is being around people who are like-minded, and also feel like I can have a voice and people are willing to listen, as well as taking the opportunity to listen to others. Is that sense of belonging. We can share ideas, and I'm not saying we all have to agree with each other, because that's because by doing that we may not be able to have an opportunity to grow, have new ideas come into the picture, be able to build on things. So I yeah, those are the like the different traits of being a feeling of belonging, um, feeling like you're part of a team and you're progressing together. Um, but I think one main um, time I would say that I felt of belonging is when I joined LinkedIn in 2021. I had no intentions of joining LinkedIn. It was known as the professional Facebook. And I was like, oh, why would I need to be joining another Facebook for? So I kind of avoided it for a very long time. But I eventually thought, no, I'm going to get on there, and I'm going to share my role as the president of Wheels and Wheelchairs. And that's so for those who don't know, that's a wheelchair roller skating group that we go around London. And I thought, okay, it'll be a great opportunity to show people in the professional world what we do. So I started off sharing what we do with Wheels and Wheelchairs, and then came around Disability Pride Month in July, a month I'd never heard of, but only learned from people I was starting to connect with on LinkedIn. And I wrote about it, and what it meant to me. And it was my first semi-viral post, and people were interested in hearing my story even more. So, and so many people from the community um, basically had their arms out and accepted me into the community, and I felt I had a voice within a community, within the disability community, and I feel like I do belong, and people are willing to what I have to say, and I'm willing to learn from others, and that's helped me in my growth in my disability advocacy work. And it's yeah, it's been such great opportunities. I mean, it's been so great that I've been able to talk here today. I mean, that's through the LinkedIn as well. So it's just opened so many doors, and I'm very grateful for this belonging.
It's so funny you should mention that, because that's exactly what I was thinking as soon as you started to talk about LinkedIn. I was like, well, hold on, that's exactly how we met, and this is
Yeah.
how how we find ourselves here today. But it's an incredibly powerful reflection, because it just goes to show the power of community, whether it's online or
Mm,
any other community that we find ourselves a part of, and connecting that to the professional business world, right? And I think that's where so many of our speakers throughout the day, and as part of conversations that I'm sure you and I have daily, right, is how do we better partner as businesses, as organizations, with communities, those communities most impacted? How do we partner for change, right? And LinkedIn is an incredibly powerful platform from which to do that. So, thank you for highlighting that important aspect.
yeah, my best performing platform, and it's yeah, given me a voice, and many other people a voice as well. And as you said, being
Mhm.
able to have spaces like this one where people are listening and learning through lived experience,
Mm,
something that I didn't get from any other platform. Not
mm,
saying that loads of people do get successes from other platforms, but LinkedIn for me, I'm glad I did make the step to get on there and be able to share my story to a lot of people.
Yeah, and thank you again for being here and having this conversation with me. So you're an accomplished entrepreneur, community leader, thought leader, advocate, ambassador, public speaker. The list goes on, Isaac. Clearly, you're unstoppable, right? And you're obviously committed to enabling the systemic change needed, right, for people and communities to thrive. So my question for you is, what drives you, and where do you draw your wisdom from to do this work?
I think I have a lot of different drivers. For me to be able to do skiing, skydiving, everything obviously requires a very crazy mind. But also I just feel like, if it's there to be done, then why not? And being able to then share that with my audience, I just like the idea of people commenting and saying, "Oh wow, I didn't know you could do that," or "I didn't know this was out there to be done," or "I didn't know this technology was able to help me," and "I didn't know this could enhance my life." Hearing those comments and how it's helping others, I think is definitely a driving force in what I do. Again, as we've been speaking, the impact it makes. I do like how it's really helping others. But yes, it's a lot of drivers. I also got to thank my mum, who's been there since day one as well, who's always encouraged me. Really do appreciate her support and never really discouraging me from doing things. And one thing has led to another. And again, still sinking in now, and it was only last week, but you know, getting recognized by royalty last week with the MBE. I guess is also another driving force to say, actually, yeah, I think I can. Well, I feel I should carry on doing what I'm
Yeah.
doing. Because as King Charles said to me himself, he said, "I hope with this award you do carry on doing the great work that you do." And I thought, yeah, that I think I feel it, yeah, I should continue. Even though it comes with its challenges within our own community and the differences it makes, but I just feel if I can do my part for the bigger picture, I think that's the most important.
Absolutely, and what an incredible moment that must have been, to be not just recognized in that way, but given that acknowledgement that what you're doing is making an impact, and this only elevates your platform, right? Grows your platform from which to speak your truth and hold space and build and grow your communities. Was your mum able to join you at your MBE ceremony?
Oh yes, the rest of the family wouldn't have allowed it otherwise. So, so yes, she was there to see the moment unfold.
Good, 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 good.
Yeah.
So I think something obviously that is on everyone's mind is, how can we step up as allies, right? How do we connect the conversation that you and I are having now with takeaways, right? Actionable steps. So, from your perspective, Isaac, what needs to change when it comes to disability and mental health? And how do allies meaningfully show up?
I would like to say from my own experience. So, again, joining LinkedIn, um, before I joined, I helped out people who were neurodiverse in some capacities and worked with different groups. But I've always as a wheelchair user and someone with a physical disability, that's what I mainly saw and what I kind of lived through. But when I joined LinkedIn and being able to connect with so many people is when it was like, actually, I don't really know much about disability. And for me, I then started to learn from others, hearing their stories, um, and how I can start implementing their needs and work into my work so I can be more accessible. For example, I didn't know about alt text or image descriptions when it comes to posting, and how that was being such a big barrier for so many people. So I, once I learned that, I started implementing that, learning people from different neurodiverse backgrounds, um, even wheelchair users. I can't speak for all wheelchair users, but hearing from others has been really insightful. And yeah, it's for me, I feel like I've become an ally to those with varying disabilities by listening to people's stories, and then actually acting upon it and implementing it into my day to day. And no way I'm gonna say I'm an expert in talking about all disabilities, because that'd be impossible. But it's just here again, taking a taking my ear and listening to others and hearing what they're going through, and then having having the space shared with myself to share authentically, because you have some organizations who may have a similar conversation like this, but they're doing it as a tick box exercise, to say they've done it, but they haven't actually learned it or doing the same behind the scenes. So I think it's got to be done authentically, give people the space, and for most cases, pay people for their time as well, because people can't just live on their lived experience. People have have to have a living, and it's not as easy for people with disabilities when it comes to work. So really do value people's time for what they do. So it's yeah, those would be my actionable steps, but mainly just to be authentic about it.
That authenticity, and I love the fact that you're so open in sharing your own willingness to learn, your acceptance that you don't know everything, and that you're a part of these conversations, or you're a member of these communities to learn as much as they have to learn from you. And it is always that two-way street, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's what this work is about. So thank you for that. I'm conscious we don't have a lot of time. In fact, we have just 2 minutes left. So I want to wrap up this very brief conversation and ask you, Isaac, what challenge or reflection or thought would you like to leave our delegates with today?
As I think, as it's so short, I didn't really get to speak a lot on mental health, but I think to leave on, it's okay not to be okay, and always be yourself, because who else is going to do it for you? And yeah, just show up, be yourself, and be honest with others and yourself, because there's always someone who is willing to listen to you.
Thank you. Incredibly powerful. And not just show up for others, but show up for yourself too, right? That brings us to the end of our brief 30 minutes. Isaac, I wish it was longer.
I know, we have to do it again.
We will. I'm going to hold you to that.
Yes.
And congratulations on your MBE. And I honestly can't wait to see all the incredible work you continue to do in this space. It's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you for joining us.
Yes, and thank you for having me.